Cue your microphone, Ashley.
And all right, well, welcome to Beginners Academy. We have a 16 participants tonight on Zoom. Every other week we try to have a program, and since it's January, we're going to cover the 2022 Winter Field Day tonight. And Winter Field Day is very similar to ARRL Field Day, but so many people complained about how hot it was. We have ended up with Winter Field Day in January. And similar to ARRL Field Day, it has a focus on emergency preparedness and also on having fun. Most of the activity in Winter Field Day is on HF, so the ham bands, particularly HF, will be very crowded. In regards to the field day part, you can be outdoors in the elements. You could be in a cabin, or you could operate from home. So they have different categories to cover those possibilities. And it's a great opportunity for beginners and returning hams to come out to a field day site and see the different stations set up. We'll be talking a little bit about the opportunity near Panama City at Pine Log State Forest. And mark your calendars, field days, so the last full weekend of January, which turns out to be the 29th and the 30th. And it's a 24-hour event starting at 1 p.m. Saturday. And the rules are at the Winter Field Day site, which you see there. You can just Google Winter Field Day and ham radio. You should be able to pick it up. And as we mentioned, you have choices about where you can operate. The picture on the right is my setup from last year's Winter Field Day, and it was at Three Rivers State Park. Since it's a 24-hour event, if you reserve a campsite, then you've got it for the whole evening, and you don't have to worry about packing up after it gets dark. And you could also operate from a cabin. I think George is going to stay in a cabin up at Three Rivers, but he may be operating from outside, which he'll be the outdoors category. And some folks aren't going to get out due to concerns about COVID or the weather, and so there's a home category. But for those that want to venture out, if you're outdoors, you get 500 bonus points. And if you're not at home, you get 500 points. So if you operated from inside a cabin, you wouldn't get the outdoor points, but you would get the you're not at home points. Winter Field Day is a operating event and a social event, but it's mostly on HF. There's some activity. I certainly welcome it on all bands. You'll need a power source. We'll talk more about that on into the talk. Antenna. A computer is optional, but if you're going to make a lot of contacts, you'll save a lot of trouble doing it on a computer with a logging program. And of course, you want to make sure you've got some eats to sustain you and some warm clothing, so forth. Winter field day. The bands are, of course, similar to any other time, but I'm predicting that 40 meters will be active for all 24 hours. So there'll be lots of activity there. And 20 meters is pretty much during the day, although it may go on an hour or so after dark. With our solar cycle, it's very likely that 15 and 10 will open up. So that gives you some more bands to operate on. For some reason, it just turns out on Sunday about 10 o'clock, 10 meters will open up, and it's just awesome. At night, 80 meters is a possibility, but you should be forewarned that the folks that in the little groups on 80 meter sideband that meet every night, they're not all that interested in winter field day. But there'll still be some activity on one end of the band. And of course, PSK 31 and CW is good, but people that have a routine, aren't as interested in it, it seems. So that covers the HF bands. I think 160 meters is a possibility, but the antennas are usually pretty big for that. So, but it's not limited to HF, so you can get some contacts from on 6 meters, 2 meters, and up. And operating on it as many bands as possible will help your score. There's some bands that there's agreement not to do contesting on, and those include 30 meters, 17 meters, 24 meters. They're known as the WARC bands. So there's a question of, well, what mode will you operate on? Well, all modes will be active except FT8 and FT4, which are not allowed. So that's because they don't support the winter field day exchange of information. And they're not really emergency modes. So the sponsors of the winter field day decided to not allow FT8 and FT4. But PSK 31 is a mode that came along before the FT modes, and there'll be a whole lot of activity on that. So we got phone, which is like single sideband or FM, AM. We got digital. There are a whole lot of digital modes, but PSK 31 will probably be the most popular one. And then we have CW, and pretty much in any contest, CW is very active and a big part of it. I've got a little note there that phone can be challenging because the phone portion of the band gets very congested. And so sometimes it's kind of uphill getting a contact because the stations that are calling CQ will draw a pile up. So you kind of have to break the pile up, and you can do it. if you're patient, but it may take a bit of time. And actually, as things move along, the pileups won't be as big, and you'll have an easier time of it. So PSK 31 is very popular. Chris, VA3ECO, excuse me, made about 80 contacts last winter field day in that mode. And so digital and CW get 2 points each for each contact. Phone gets 1, which is funny because phone is harder than the other two. But I think they're trying to relieve the congestion by drawing people into the other modes. And using all 3 modes on any band will help your score.
Already.
RTTY would be fine. I guess it would count as a digital mode.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much RTTY there'll be. But we got the big multiplication.
That'd be
here.
about 5. That'd be about 5 stations.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's worth it if you want credit for a digital mode, which of course you would. Well, the reason working the different bands and modes is important is the more combinations of band and mode you work, it will increase your score dramatically because the number of combinations you operate on or make contacts with it's a multiplier, and we'll see how that fits into the equation a bit further down. All right, winter field day power source. Non-commercial power is a 500-point bonus. So this is in the spirit of emergency communications. So really, whether you're home or in the field, you could, instead of using the mains power, you could use a battery or a generator, and you would get 500 bonus points. And those using battery often use a solar panel to charge the batteries in the daytime, and that gets them pretty much fully charged, so you can make it through the night should you want to operate through the night. You've got plenty of battery power. In fact, pretty much the solar power for me replaces what I'm using during the daytime. And your logging computer does not have to be on battery for the bonus. So we'll continue on. There is something new this year. There's a 100-watt limit for all the participants. And I see that as a good thing. So it'll be a more level playing field. You won't have to compete with somebody running 1,000 or 1,500 watts. And there's a multiplier for power. So if you run 100 watts or less, you'll get a 2x unless you're at the QRP level. And then you're allowed 10 watts on phone or digital and 5 watts on CW. And that is a 4x multiplier. But you need to make a decision because you can't do it piecemeal. You need to make a decision if you're going to be QRP or 100 watts or 50 watts or whatever. So the question is to QRP or not to QRP. QRP means use low power or so. Last year I operated QRP and still had a great time. And QRP has a 4x multiplier. So that's a judgment call among many decisions. Well, Winter Field Day, it is a contest of sorts. So it has a exchange between stations because the contacts are one-on-one. Also, there's what's called a class, which is the number of simultaneous transmitters. And most people, unless they're in a group, they're going to be one transmitter. But conceivably, there could be a group with many transmitters. But in our area, it's generally been one transmitter per call sign. And this is the category. The three categories are outdoors, indoors, or home. So O, Oscar for outdoors. It's got an extra R in it. I for indoors, but not at your home. So if you were inside a cabin or an EOC or somewhere, you would be India. And then hotel is for home. So your info would be the class, which is probably going to be one. And if you're outdoors, it's going to be O. So phonetically, it's like one Oscar. And then your ARRL or Radio Amateur Canadian section. And we're Northern Florida around Bay County. And Chris is Ontario North, I think. But nevertheless, you have that information to exchange with anyone you work on Winter Field Day. And it would go something like this: VA3ECO, this is N4KGL. We are one Oscar, Northern Florida, NFL. And Chris would come back and say, N4KGL, this is VA3ECO. QSL, copy our one Oscar. Now, I'm assuming he'll be outdoors, but I can't guarantee it. But anyway, one Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
One Oscar. Ontario North. Is that correct, Chris?
That's right.
Yeah. Any questions about the exchange? You'll hear how you'll hear the pattern on the air and get used to doing that. And of course, your information is going to go, if you like, it can go into a log so you can submit a score. We'll talk about that later. Now, the picture in the upper right is for bots. And I have too many people up there. But there are two operating styles really for any contest. And one style is called search and pounce. It's like a cat. And so you tune around for a station calling CQ, work the station, and then you're done with him. And so you tune around and find another station, work that one, and just keep searching and pouncing. And for most of us just getting started, that's how we start. The other way is more like a dog barking. It's find a spot, call CQ, work a station, and then continue to call CQ. Now, if you're fortunate, they call it running because if you call CQ, you may have a dozen stations come back to you. And then you keep pulling stations out of the pile up and you're just racking up a big score. And some stations just run for the whole event, I think. I've done more search and pounce than running, but once you get used to what's going on, you can try it. And it's pretty exciting when you get a run. Let's see. There is another bonus. It's the satellite bonus, and it's 500 points. And they only want you to make one satellite contact so you don't clog up the satellites. And but it's 500 points. It does not count as a new band and mode. But that bloke over there is doing a satellite contact, and there are two categories of satellites. One is the FM satellites, which are like a repeater in the sky, and they're wonderful, but they tend to get congested. And then there are satellites that are called linear satellites that have a like 20 kilohertz input and 20 kilohertz output. And so there could be many QSOs or contacts going on a linear satellite, which is helpful. So Chris has advised me to try a linear satellite this year. And maybe I'll run into Chris. I don't know. And I see that I've got Tom locked out there. I can't find my cursor. All right. Well, everything I've mentioned and really the official rules are in the rules. And I've got some extracts here. We've mentioned the QSO points are different for phone, and then there are 2 points for CW and digital. We've mentioned the band and mode multiplier. So, and then there's a multiplier for power. So we get down to the equation at the bottom of QSO points times power output multiplier times band mode multiplier plus bonus points. Now, if you're using a logging program that's specific to winter field day, it's going to calculate all this for you, and you don't have to worry about it. But so, you know, if you want to be competitive, there's all kinds of ways to up your points. Most of us are trying to have fun and get a good taste of it. And but it's fun to see how well you do compared to previous years.
Hey, Greg,
Yes.
what's a busted whatever that was?
All right.
Busted
A
exchange.
busted exchange. Well,
Yeah.
When you turn in your logs, they can compare them. And if you got somebody's call sign wrong, and through the logs, they figured out that you didn't get their call sign right, but somebody else worked you and they did get your call sign right, then that would be a busted exchange. or if you got some detail about the exchange wrong.
Okay.
So I have seen that they actually do take some points away. And
I'll show you Greg's at the end of the talk.
yeah,
We'll go into that.
yeah. All right. So the next slide is club score or group. So there'll be a lot of us from Panama City Amateur Radio Club. And it really applies to everyone. You know, they can kind of contribute their points to an aggregate club score by putting in their club name in their log on a special club line. So I encourage us in Panama City ARC to use Panama City ARC exactly. But I'm going to have a tough time because I'm a member of the Wiregrass Amateur Radio Club too. So
Turncoat.
I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. But this is this came about partly due to COVID. Usually field day is, you know, it can be a very big social event where you want, you know, and we're still inviting everybody to come out, but some people are concerned about that. So if they were concerned about it, they could operate out by their own, or they could operate at home, and they can contribute their score to the club without being in the same physical room as or tent as everybody else.
You could even be in another country and it still works.
Right, right. So Chris is going to help us out.
Yeah, as long as you spell it right.
Yeah. Okay.
Bob's not here, is he? There he is, top of the list.
Okay.
Speak of the devil.
Well, last year, we had this many people submit a score, and those all added up to 35,824 for the Panama City Club. And so we were well represented. A number of us were at Three Rivers State Park. Chris was in Canada, and you notice Cal W4GMH, I believe, had 500 contacts, but he was from home with a giant antenna system. And so we'll see what shapes up this next year, or January anyway. Winter field day logging. I think the popular choice is N3FJP software. They have a winter field day version. It knows everything about winter field day. So all you have to do is put the call, the category, which is like that one Oscar, and then the section like NFL in, and hit enter. Your score goes in, or your contact goes in, and it does all the calculations. It tells you what sections you've worked, and it's a detail, but Alabama is just one section, but Florida has a number of sections, and a number of states. Like there's East New York, North New York, Northern Long Island, Southern, well, that's New Jersey, but, or West New York. So just because they're in New York, you have to get their correct section.
Or it'll be a busted
or to be a
contact.
busted. Okay. But N3F, just Google it and Google N3FJP Winter Field Day, and you'll get the web page to download it. It's, as far as I know, it's a Windows product. It does take some money to register it and open it up, but there are other choices. And hey, you know, if you're only going to make about 10 contacts, well, maybe you don't need a logger, but the big mistake is to make 10, 20, or 30 contacts and then try to do it all after the fact. So overall, things are easier with a logging program. N1MM is another choice. Is that what you're going to use, Chris?
Yeah, that's what I use, and it's free, but I'll say it right up front here. It's very complex. It's a lot steeper learning curve than the N3FJP, but it does have the advantage if you are heavy into PSK 31, it interfaces directly with FL Digi so that you're not, it'll actually grab the data right out of that other program. So it's got an advantage that way. But I would say I would lean towards the N3FJP unless you're very into the technical side of things. The N1MM is not a pretty thing.
It took me my whole career to work up to N1MM.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but it's powerful, but not pretty.
Well, it's confusing at first, but once you get to the right spot, it goes smoothly after that.
Yeah, Greg, you mentioned that the N3FJP was Windows based. I can, from experience, does not work well on Raspberry Pi. That people have gotten into work on other Linux distributions, but I spent several or many hours, more hours probably than I should have, trying to get to work on a Raspberry Pi and under one, and it will not.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't know if there's a Linux version Winter Field Day. Did you find an alternative?
Not really. I mean, there are some general logging programs for the Raspberry Pi that work fine, but nothing, you know, I've used N3FJP for a little while, and it works incredibly easy for the field day stuff, and I haven't really found anything comparable.
Yep. But you had an adventure figuring that out. All right. Well, there are a group of us camping at Pine Log State Forest at the Sand Pond Campground. We've got our reservations, and the campers include KK4DIV, Bob, Frank, KC8VCA, Daniel, K4MDA, Scott, KF7MYF, Ashley, KO4CVX, and N4KGL. And I think, well, chances are the campsite is full.
It is full.
Yep. But this is pretty neat that it's not that far. It's from Panama City. It's a few miles south of Ebro on Highway 79. So people that aren't out there are, if you're not camping, you're welcome to come out and take things in. There's limited parking, but I think there's enough of us out there that there'll be some spaces left over to park your car. And who knows, if you haven't had the winter field day experience, we can uh, encourage you to make some contacts on our stations and um, see what it's all about. And obviously there'll be every kind of antenna. Frank has 10 antennas, and there'll be all kinds of rigs. And Bob, KK4DIV and I have been talking about doing QRP. We're not locked into that, but I'd say that's the plan right now. Is that correct, Bob?
Yeah, that's the plan. I enjoy working QRP just for the smaller aspect of everything. Don't have to bring real large battery or whatever. But yeah, QRP, that's the plan, and digital modes. That's what I'm looking at doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hate to bring this up. Now, we won't get any interference from Chris this year. So, but with a number of stations at a campground, there's going to be some interference among the stations. Probably operating QRP you'll have less of an impact on your neighbor. Of course, we're going to separate the antennas. We might want them to be at right angles from each other, perhaps. I have some filters that I'm going to bring for my station, and it will reduce the energy out of the band that I transmit, and then it will reduce the energy out of band that I receive. So, but those are kind of expensive, so everybody's not going to do that. There could be various ways to coordinate, but I think we didn't have very much coordination at Three Rivers. And at times it was difficult, but overall, I think it worked out. So the last bullet there, suffer through it and hope for the best. So, George, do you have any comments about this? I know you were a little frustrated.
No, yeah, he's just, if we're in better band conditions where there are more than two bands open, it would be fine. But like last year, Winter Field Day, it was pretty much 40 and 20. And you can try to stay away from people as much as possible, but it just doesn't work out well.
Yeah. So we'll just see how it works. And we could work out some kind of coordination if folks want to. But yeah, hopefully there'll be more bands that we'll have 15 and 10 and 80 and spread things out.
Greg?
Is there a question?
Yeah. I've been goofing around a lot with magnetic loops.
Yes.
I made one for a friend of mine up in Cleveland, pretty big, and he was able to get on 80 meters. As we're going to be operating very much on 80 meters, I just wondered how much interference the magnetic loop would affect the other antennas.
Well, I think I don't think it will. Well, for one thing, the magnetic loop is very narrow band, so it's a natural filter. So you're actually going to reject interference from other transmitters. And so I think it's a pretty good choice for interference wise. So now I think we have to watch out if we're really close neighbors and running a lot of power, you know, with antennas that are right next to each other, it could be detrimental to your equipment, but we're probably going to be somewhat spread out. But to answer your question, Frank, I think that would be fine. There isn't as much activity on 80 meters as the other bands, but there'll be some at, you know, when 80 is at its best at night. Yeah.
Well, we'll probably be doing a little bit experimenting with one or the other to see whatever works out. And at the same time, we're going to see which ones, when you do all this, part of your experiment is not trying to affect each other too. So that's part of the learning
Right.
curve. So we'll just have to work it out, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll see how these filters help out. I know if I have the filter hooked up and I get on the wrong band, I can't hear anything. So I got to make sure I have the right filter for the band I really want to operate on.
Now, I think 2 years ago we had HTs and coordinated through 146.52, I think, or at least 1 year we did, Craig. That might be an idea. Everyone just to have an HT on their desk, just to save having to run across the street and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Chris. So this would be a good use of your HT. So let's do that. Let's have a HT, and then we can shout out, see what our neighbors are doing. All right.
Greg, just one thing.
Yeah.
Through the years, people come up with different ways of rejecting, interference. The filters that you have, are they homemade or are they something you bought?
I bought them from DX Engineering. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if I have to look up, see, just for knowledge and just maybe to pass on the information, what it would take to do a homebrew type, just.
Yeah.
There's various different ones.
Yeah, there are different ways to do it. You can use a piece of coax at the particular length, and it will be like a band stop filter.
You put it in a T with a T connection, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a while back when I did play with that in Puerto Rico with a couple of guys down there. You sort of have to get the right length there.
Yeah. So there are stations, particularly for ARRL field day, that have 10 or more stations on at one time. And so they go to great lengths to reduce interference between them. And since we're kind of ad hoc, we're probably not working on it as hard as they would. So, yeah. So,
I mean, like for some people, this particular event might be part of a learning curve too.
I agree.
You don't necessarily have to make points. You just do it to gain and get better for next year.
Yeah. We've talked all about points, but it's you have a choice, just making some contacts if it's new to you is a very good experience. So, and also you may want to get on someone else's station and make a few contacts or see how they're doing the digital contacts. So, I guess we have to kind of temper what we do because of COVID, but that's one of the advantages of having a event like this. So it's a learning experience. Are there other questions about Winter Field Day? Comments?
You guys usually, do you guys usually rent out just the RV spots, or do you have anybody over the primitive area also?
Well, the people I mentioned have regular RV spots. I don't know if there's other spots to camp or not, but really, it's open to whatever possibilities you can dream up. There's also kind of a picnic area and a pavilion and all that. That's another spot someone could
Greg.
operate if they just wanted to come out for the day.
Hey, Greg,
Yes,
this is Ken.
yes,
I have been down there, and if you're going to permanently be, and I say permanently, if you're going to take a camper, you have to be in the campsites, and they are all full at this point. Now,
yeah,
there is that really, really nice pavilion that's completely outside the campground on the other side of the park, and it's a wide open area, and it'd be a great place, if you wanted to come out and set up antennas and operate out of the pavilion or whatever. There's a nice restroom there, and so on and so forth. But I suspect that it would be all right to come inside the camping area and visit, for a few hours at a time. But as far as spending the night, unless you're with somebody that's got a camper there, it's full right now.
right. Well, that's a good point. But I've operated that pavilion area unless somebody has reserved the pavilion.
That's tricky.
And this is a Parks on the Air site also. And really, if you want to submit your contacts to Parks on the Air, it will count as an activation. And you could also get on Friday afternoon or Friday night and work a few stations to test things out and submit that for Parks on the Air. In fact, you might start a pilot.
Well, I'm just thinking that, Greg, like you can do both. All you got to do is there's so much interested in parks lately, especially on the weekend. If you even did a CQ Parks on the Air and say, by the way, I'm also doing Winter Field Day, and just ask the other guy, are you at home? Right?
Yeah.
And you could check his address later through QRZ, or you could just ask the guy, or what part of, well, it's just New York and California are the big problem child, right? Like the rest of them, it's the whole state pretty much. And away you go. Why not do both? You're gonna be logging like crazy. And again, it's sometimes good to have two people at a station, one logging, one talking, and or one doing CW, and then do two logs. Why not? Boy, you go like a house on fire with Parks on the Air.
Well, actually, I believe you could just take your log. I haven't done this, but I think you can just take your Winter Field Day log, and you might have to dress it up a little bit, but submit it as a Parks on the Air log without ever mentioning where you are.
Done it. You can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've done it, eh, Bob?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was I think it was just regular field day. because I was at Falling Waters, and yeah, I took the contacts and submitted it to Parks on the Air. I mean, it was at a park.
And how did the action go? I would think you get more Parks on the Air action than field day action, wouldn't you?
I didn't really, like Greg said, I didn't really announce I was doing Parks on the Air because I was strictly PSK, and I was, operating off and on. So I really, I mean, yes, I mean, if you would say your Parks on the Air, you would have, I think, quite the pileup.
Yeah.
But
It's
I just operated
It might get
regular
confusing too.
and uploaded it to Parks on the Air after the
Yeah.
fact.
But you can get credit and give other people credit. They don't know they're getting credit, but
Right.
they get it.
It's a surprise to them. Like, oh, hey, look, I got
Pine Log State Park.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob,
Yep.
the PSK that you do, how can you explain a little bit about how you go about doing it? How you set it up for your radio and your computer?
Gosh, I use FL Digi when I'm using Windows. But gosh, to explain how to set it up just on the fly right here, no, I couldn't. But I'm using FL Digi. I use a IC 705. Now that that's pretty much my go-to radio now. But with the IC 705, there is no additional interface. You just plug the radio into your computer via USB. And in FL Digi, you tell it to look for whatever that radio is called when you plug it in. It actually shows up as a sound card device. And it's just one cable to the computer does it all. You don't have to worry about a signal link or anything like that. So it's really easy.
But then you have that computer plus a logging computer, or is it do it all at once?
I honestly, I'm a paper log kind of guy. And I know Greg said you don't want to do a paper log and punch it all in the computer after the fact, but that's how I do it every time.
Really?
So yeah, I just write it down on paper. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm pretty good at typing, but I can write and do that better than I can type on the computer and try to keep up with it that way.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing PSK, when I have a macro set up for the final, when I sign off with them, and part of that macro is to log the contact. So it goes into PSK's log, and you could actually export that log from FL Digi to the N3JFP software or whatever that software is. But yeah, you can export that log and then bring that into that software. So, if I'm doing straight digital, I don't even have to do it on paper. It's all done with FL Digi.
And as far as the different macros, Frank, that's kind of a personal choice. Like I've got mine home brewed and Bob's got his. And what you can do is just look at other people on PSK 31 at the beginning of the day and just sort of note what they're saying back and forth and make some notes about what macros they're using, and just copy what you see on the air, what you like best. And there's just 2 or 3 macros, it's answering a CQ or calling a CQ.
Right.
So it depends on if you're search and pouncing or whether you're running, but you'll have a set of macros for each, and 2 or 3 macros for each, and away you go. And you can fine tune them as you go along, especially if you're search and pouncing. You can try it and see if your macros cause confusion or not, and tweak them up a bit. And once you got that set and you get the rhythm going, it's really quick. Like you can really start knocking them off, Frank. It's quite the digital is quite fun, and like Bob says, it alleviates having a logger because it's auto logging to some degree, and it's a great way to go, I think.
Yeah. Are you going to be there at Pine Log, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be happy to kind of give you the rundown when I'm there.
Sure. Well-
and kind of show you what's going on with
Yeah,
it.
still his macros are probably pretty good.
And honestly, that is the hardest thing is getting those macros set up the first time and getting that rhythm. But once you kind of get that on, and it's a little bit of trial and error, the first time you do it. But I've got the macros in there now, and they work both for winter field day and regular field day. I just have to go in there and tweak a couple little things in them, and yeah, it's ready to go. As long as my computer doesn't crash and I have to recreate everything.
One of my thoughts is, and I may do it or may not, I have the TS 890, and that does all that itself. And I have to figure it out. That's a learning curve for me. And I think that radio will actually record all that in the radio. And that's something I got to figure out.
Yeah, the radio doesn't have a keyboard though, Frank.
Well, yeah, it does if you plug it in.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
can send, I got a keyboard and then I could actually send CW on keyboard,
Oh, wow.
the radio. So that's why I may bring that. It's a big, heavy radio. And I've never got all the use that it does, but I think by bringing it out and maybe sharing that with somebody else, maybe we could put a couple of hits together. We can figure out how to get the most juice out of that particular radio. They may be one of the radios I bring just so that we can figure it out.
All right. Well, I guess one more call for questions, comments.
Greg, do you want me to go over a little bit about the scoring stuff? I've got yours on the screen here if I could do a share.
Sure. I'm going to stop my share.
Okay. You guys should be looking at a bunch of text on a white background, I hope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Greg's result. So
Yeah.
and I think we should really strongly point out that you don't have to submit a log. If you want to just get into this and give out some points and just have fun with it, you don't have to put in the log. People are not penalized for working you without a log. Like if you don't submit your log, they don't get subtracted points because of that. I don't think many contests do that. Now, if you do a log, you should get everyone in the log. In other words, if you're starting to do it and you're having fun, you thought, oh, I should start logging this and submit it halfway through the field day. That's not good because the first guys that didn't get in your log will get an NIL, not in log. And they can get penalized for that. So looking at this right at the top, we've got the call sign, Greg's call sign, what category he was in. He was one outside, North Florida. So those are all his total contacts going across the top. And then as we go down, we'll look at the phone section here. He had 8 orphan phone contacts. So that means 8 people gave him a point, but never submitted a log. But you'll see in the brackets here, no deductions. So that didn't hurt Greg at all. The fact that he worked 8 guys that didn't submit a log. The next one is 1 NIL not in log. So that I don't know if that gives you deductions or not, but the next one, a busted contact will. So that's something that either Greg heard it wrong or maybe the guy gave it wrong. At any rate, his info, he might have said 1 outdoor and it was 2 outdoor, what have you. That's a busted contact.
Right.
And then he had 17 good ones. So then I'm not going to go through all of them. Then he gets into CWs, his totals and stuff. I'm going to scroll right to the bottom where the final formula here. So he's got, yeah, it does count against you. So for phone here, 27 contacts minus 2 that were busted times 1. Because remember, the phone only gets 1 point. So that gave him 25 points. Now CW, he did as many, minus 3 because of busted calls. but a multiplier of 2. So that gives him 46. So he did as many calls CW as phone, but he got twice the points. Digital, he did 1 minus 0 times 2, again 2 points. Now you're wondering, well, he just did one contact on digital. Like what? Why even bother? That's big. That one contact on digital multiplies all his other points by another factor, as we'll see when we come into the next line here. So he's got total QSO points of 73. And let's go down to the bottom line here. 73 times 4, because he was QRP, times 7, because he worked 7 modes and bands. So that one digital contact had him go from 6 to 7. That one little digital contact up there took that up by 1 point. So if you think about it, whatever 73 times 4 works out to 312 or whatever, he got 312 more points by having that one digital in there, because his multiplier went from 6 to 7. Then he's got 4,500. Now last year, the outdoors and the power and all that was 1,500 points. This year it's only 5. So he got 3 of the bonus point things times 1,500 is 4,500. This year he'll only get 150. Although if he gets
The satellite.
sorry, I did the math wrong. It's
Yeah.
3 times 500. You get 1,500 this year.
Yeah.
If he gets a satellite, he'll get 2,000. Is that right? Yeah, 2,000
Yeah.
this year.
I tried to get a satellite last year, but
Yeah.
I didn't make it.
FM's a
It was the
FM
FM
is a
satellite.
bear. FM on field day, be it winter or summer, is a bear. You know, but and then minus 5. I don't know what the 5 here is for. Oh, that's your deduction. Oh, here's our deductions right here. You're not in log and busted contacts and dupes. So they do subtract it up there. There's his 5 taken away there, and there's his total point. So that's how points work. I could go over mine and
Yeah. Well,
and Jennifer, you guys get the picture, I think.
you mentioned something about dupes. If you work the same station on the same band and mode more than once, it's a duplicate. And they don't actually penalize you for a duplicate, but you're kind of wasting the other guy's time. So he'll say, dupe, goodbye.
Well, actually, right here, Greg, it looks like they do take off a point. The NIL, not in log, busted, and dupes are in your deduction column.
Well, actually, they do subtract it because it's not a valid contact.
Oh, but then you were getting an extra one from it being a dupe anyhow. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
really a
They don't-
negative thing. Yeah.
You've added more contacts, which they'll take away, but you already worked them. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but in contest in general, dupes, it's not a major thing. It's something that happens.
Another advantage to having a computer logging
Yes.
system is that it'll flash a red warning as soon as you put that guy in there. It lets you know.
Yeah.
Whereas Bob has to watch for it carefully
Yeah.
himself.
Well, he's got a good
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah, he's got a younger brain. It still works.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't have any hair. That's the same problem.
He thinks so hard it burns his hair off. Yeah.
Yeah. It just pops right out.
Yeah.
While I got the screen up, I'll show you a couple of show and tell.
All right.
This is me last year. I think you guys might have seen this before. You can do it if it's an uninsulated vehicle. Frank, I don't know if yours would qualify, but a regular car, it's considered outdoors. So I put a little shelf with a little bracket here to hold up the logging computer, and the radio sits behind me. There's getting ready to go. Ham stick on the car last year was my theme. This year, this is taken about 4 hours ago. This is out in the middle of what they call Echo Bay. And there's the hamstick is on the left side of the car. You can see there. But over here is a 17-foot whip stuck in a snowbank. And that's my walking pole that I use for my radar challenge. And then the cable just runs in through the window, just like that.
See,
There's
Chris really does winter field day. You know, we get a break down here in Florida.
I like verticals. I don't know. For contesting, I like verticals. At home, I got Yagis and yada yada, but I like this. And here is our elevated radio, which Greg's video that he sent me told me all about the importance of this. So one going one way, one going the other way. 2 elevated radials is lots. And this is, I think Ashley will recognize this little piece of hardware. There's your little bracket that you get at the truck stop. SO239 at the bottom, a 3/8 CB mount at the top. And there's my walking stick that I use for hiking. And I just stick it in a snowbank, and that's, there's another view. So that's my plan. We'll see how it works. This whip, I found out if I put a 40-meter hamstick underneath this big honking whip, it tunes 80 meters and possibly a little more efficient because I'm now looking at, 22 feet of antenna instead of 8 feet. I'll let you know how it works out. I'm going to try a 40-meter hamstick with a 17-foot whip for 80 meters this year, and I'll let you know how it flies. So we'll see. And that's my pony show. Dog and
Very
pony.
nice.
I in Cleveland, I had a 48-foot vertical, and I brought it down because I didn't want to leave it up. But then once it was down, it ended up being only 6 foot, maybe 7 foot long. So I tried to see if I could slide it underneath my bed in my motorhome, and it slid in there really nice. So I have it down here. I wonder if I could set that up at the park. Would that look kind of crazy, putting up a 48-foot vertical in the park?
Hell no.
Well, as long as you don't put it across power lines or your neighboring campers, you'll be
Yeah.
all right.
Greg speaks from experience there.
Yeah. Well, I might. I do have a hitch on the back of my motorhome. I
Yeah.
might make some device where I could mount it on the hitch of my, just to have one of different antennas to experiment with.
So is that close to 40 meters natural? And Frank, what band do you like with that? Is it loaded or what's the story?
Well, the way I use it at home, I have a LDG AT1000, and I have it right at the base of it.
Yeah.
No balun on it. It tunes
Yeah.
80 all the way up to 10.
Yeah, and the big thing is, I think, Frank, is have some radials, especially if they're elevated. You don't have to have a million of them if you get them off the ground, and have a radial cut for each band, and away you go.
Yeah, it tunes it. It tunes it really good, but the radials make it more effective.
All right.
A couple more percentage efficiency. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, the thing for beginners or returning hams is just to stick your toe in. And you don't have to worry about all these details. Stick your toe in, and I think you'll like the water. Yeah. So sometimes we get into the advanced stuff, but it doesn't have to be so advanced. But the more you do it, the more tricks you like to play. So for us, it's been doing it. Field day was like a teenage experience for me. So it's just something I've got to do. And once you get into this, you'll be planning for the next field day, for 6 months.
My most all the time that I do field day, and I've done many of them, I ended up not really participating on the event, but I do end up like helping set up and try different
Yeah.
things and experiment. And that actually has set up everything for everybody.
And making chili.
Huh?
and making chili.
I could do that. I mean, I could make chili. I don't know. I don't know if you could eat it or not, but but then when if if everything was working well, then then I'd go out and get on the radio and talk to some stuff, mostly phone. But the radios I got now are various different ones. I'm going to try. I had one event. I had I think it was a 7610. And I did RTTY with that RTTY, and it we made several contacts really quick with that. There was people with RTTY out there, but they don't come out unless they hear somebody else. And once you get on there, you wait a while, then they'll start you start getting some response to it. But anyway, I like to try just different things and see which one works better, just for the heck of one thing or the other, play around with it. And at the same time, if somebody's out there that's just new with something, well, I just show them, show them how different things work, which is let them choose what they prefer to do. So I have different types, loop antenna with that big vertical. I have a different kind of antennas that we could play around and see what's the best choice, what choice the people want to have.
There's Jim doing RTTY right now.
Yeah. Well, I think the camp host is going to think they've been invaded. I think that's going to be a fact. So.
Well,
but actually, I've never had a negative response from any state park volunteer or ranger or anything else. So they like people to come up with different ways to use the parks, so, and the campground. So,
and you're going to bring your yellow banner again this year, Greg?
Yes, and I'm going to bring Susie. She's off camera, but she's coming.
I was going to ask you that those dogs you had in the other picture with one of them, Susie.
Yeah, Susie beat them up.
I didn't know, I never seen Susie, with her mouth wide open like that. I didn't know.
Well, if we go off and leave her and come back home, she'll show some teeth.
I don't blame her.
Just, where have you been?
Hey, got a question, Greg.
Yes.
Up at Pine Log on the east side there, isn't there a pavilion over there?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know what you'd have to do to use it. And also there's a whole lot of land there that's part of the park. You could go out there anywhere and set up, I would think. Maybe not overnight, but certainly during the daytime.
Well, I think they would chase you out at dark, or
I've been up there on the walking trails before, and I've been up there hunting before. So I know you can go during the daytime. You don't have to check with anybody or anybody. You just go.
Yeah.
But you do have to be out at night. There's a big sign.
Yeah.
Well, that would give you a little bit of separation.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the camping that I've done up there has been on the primitive side. Site 2 and Site 3 are pretty good sizes. Site 1 is just big enough for one person, but Site 3, that has its own cul-de-sac. I mean, that it's got its own kayak ramp, and there's a lot of bike trails and trails up there. But if someone couldn't get into the RV side, if they wanted to pitch a tent out there, they could still get onto the primitive side right by the river and set up something down there.
Yeah.
Do they still have the bees up there?
Not that I know of. No, when I went up there, it's been about a year ago last time I went up there, but I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't go over to the RV side. I stick on the primitive side of it.
No, the bees were over between the campground and the road that went down to the river. They cautioned you not to go out in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the driveway going back in the primitive side, I didn't see anything like that. On the left hand side, We turn off the primitive side. I didn't see anything over there last time I was there.
All right. Well, just to give you a heads up, if it matters, I've got a reservation at Falling Water State Park for the ARRL field day, which is the last full weekend of June. So, and I picked this particular spot that's next to a big open field. So you have a lot of bonus space for antennas, at least at that one campsite. So, and actually, I haven't camped at Pine Log, so you know we'll see how far I can stretch antennas out. We'll see. Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned something about unheated vehicle. What does it take to qualify for that?
It's in the rules. It's something about insulation. It's not about the heat. It's about whether insulated or not.
Well, so there's a guy there or something?
It's in the rules there.
Yeah.
But mine vehicle is not much different than a car would be as
Yeah.
far as,
Yeah.
I don't, so I don't know.
You just
Okay.
have to read the rules and interpret them for your situation.
I think, yeah, they're trying to
Yeah.
rule out a guy living in a mobile home that's like got real, insulation on the walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Figure, hey, I'm outside because
It-
I'm in a mobile home.
Or a 32-foot RV.
Yeah, if I did,
Like
I
Ashley?
guess if I operated from inside the trailer, I couldn't claim outdoors. So
Open the window.
yeah, well, hopefully the temperature isn't like tonight's going to be. So
I don't see it getting much
Well-
better. Not 2
Well-
weeks.
yeah, I don't know. One year it just it was like an 8-hour downpour overnight. So
Well, I plan on doing a drive-by anyway. I'm going to come up,
Yes.
troop the colors a little bit. If Chris was there, I'd holler out that he owed me money, but he's not going to be there. So
Next year I will be.
Hey, Bots, are you going to be camping there?
no, I ain't going to camp, but I'll come up on Saturday just to throw stuff at y'all.
Well, that's all
Unless
right.
you're making chili. If you're making chili, I'll be nice.
Come on,
Okay.
Frank, make some chili. Do it.
Oh,
Well-
wait a minute. I got to calculate where the nearest bathroom is from the park.
Oh, they got heated washrooms, I think.
Yeah, but you got to get from the park back to the house. And if Frank makes
Okay.
chili,
Yeah.
I better
Yeah.
have one in between.
Garlic bread, sour cream, grated cheese, and chili. Frank,
Yeah.
you're in.
I want to
Yeah,
thank
it's-
everyone for their can't say the word for joining us
Participation.
tonight. Yes, and all the comments and questions. And so if you have the opportunity, take advantage of it. And then we'll see how it turns out. The main goal is to have fun, and I think we all are going to have some fun. So with that, we'll say 73 and catch you on the next Zoom.